If you really want to flesh out your idea, talk about it like 5 times in a week, and you'll understand if you're passionate about it and you really want to pursue it, or you're gonna just can't wait to get on to the other thing.
So are you passionate about
I
this?
think I am. I think I am. If not, I'm seeing this stuff in my sleep. So I like everyone in this room. Just let's get that out there, and I really want some harsh feedback on this pitch. So don't play around with your little gloves on. So what I'd like to do is give you kind of the pitch I've been refining over the last couple of weeks that I've been pitching, and then walk you through.
Right now.
Yep.
On this very first slide, you have from presence to performance, and it's in quotes, and I think it's italicized.
Yes. Too much.
I don't think it's an actual quote.
No, it's not.
Like, I think it's just your tagline. So just get rid of the italics and just have regular font.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thanks. Awesome. This is exactly what I want. All right. So first off, my name is Darren MacDonald, and for the past 18 years, I've been working throughout North America trying to create healthy, safe, and productive work environments. As a result, through some research and in my search for an idea, I've stumbled across a challenge that Canadian companies have. That being to the tune of around $16 billion a year. Thousands of employees every day don't show up to work. And as a result, hey Sean, how you doing, buddy?
I'll stop in another time.
No problem.
Usual.
Just to jump back in there.
Don't worry about what you memorized.
I didn't memorize.
Okay,
so I'm going through my thing. All right, so thousands of people don't show up at work every day. For the most part, companies don't track that. Just about 46% do. So to combat that, one of the things I've looked at with my team is to come up with a solution. And that solution is in the space of a coaching platform, not a tracking mechanism, which exists today. Big data like SAP, PeopleSoft, a lot of the enterprise solutions that exist out there exist, and they have a lot of the tracking capabilities. A lot of data mining, though, if you want to use that information. On the flip side, kind of the space that I'm looking at playing in, there's a lot of cloud-based solutions. So there's things like Cake HR and Breathe HR that offer similar experiences to what we're looking at, but they're, again, more on the tracking side. So our differentiation piece is around coaching. How can we allow managers to have difficult conversations with folks that are struggling, to be at work, if you will? So we look at having our team is made up of myself, another ergonomist with a business background, industrial organizational psychologists, as well as disability management professionals. And what we did, we basically put a question out to 15 to 18 HR professionals and asked them, what are your top 3 challenges that you come across every day? And performed a little thematic analysis to see what trends were developing. And what was bubbling up to the top was this notion of absenteeism and how can we address it. So the platform would essentially be a 2-sided network. That's why I'm using it as a social network for today's class. So on the employee side, you get an interface and your own kind of stats, and on the manager side, they have it from a team view. So as a result of implementing this solution, the employees would be able to identify kind of at the peer level where they stand with respect to the team and their own performance. And on the manager side, this allows them to free up to coach the team to higher levels of productivity without having to worry about who's in at work today. So they're not so focused on absence management, but they're focused on productivity of the team. And as a result, the organization can actually tackle this problem of absence management in a simplistic, positive, proactive approach using uptime management. So that's basically what I've been spewing out the last couple of pitches. It's gone from 60 seconds to 5 minutes, and this was probably the worst delivery of it I've had this week. But that's okay. I'm cool with that. I just wanted to share like some of the feedback that I got when I first did it. A lot of the Pitch 101 stuff that we received via email, I didn't want to follow that cookie cutter recipe approach. So I went out and I started to look at some sales texts that I had. Daniel Pink identified kind of the 6 pitches that are, I guess, new wave, whatever, after the elevator pitch. And one of them was the Pixar pitch. So it's kind of telling a story like Colin would like to tell through Disney's view or lens. And that's what I did. And when I presented it the first time, and many of you were there for that, it went all right. The next time I did it, the judges were all people that I knew prior. So I got a lot of very good, abrupt feedback from Bob Pelly, Steve Manley, Darren Gallup, and who else was there? Oh, Jim Dulesky. And they all said, Steve Manley looked at me, he said, I don't know what your product is. He goes, I understand, I don't know where this is in development. He goes, but you could sell anything based on that pitch that I gave him. And I was like, ooh, so I came off salesy. And Bob Pelly was the exact same format. So I've tried to change the tone because the tone of the Q&A that I had with them as part of the presentation was much more relaxed, and it was much more about the logistics behind it, the data that's driving kind of the idea, as opposed to me selling snake oil, I think is how Bob Pelly put it. So that feedback was really good. It made me change my tone. And then today it was much more relaxed. I don't know if Emily shared any of that with you today, but the feedback I got was horrible today because it was only like 2 things. But they were pretty valuable. One was let the peers mark their peers' attendance, which was kind of a neat concept. And the other piece of advice was try and focus just on the management side and kind of forget the employee interface component to the app. So I'm open to your feedback now. Oh, thanks.
So when you were talking about the competitors, SAP, and you mentioned some big enterprise companies, is that like the human capital management space?
Exactly.
Okay. And you just feel like they have that covered and you don't want to compete with them directly, or? Actually,
eventually I would, but I'd like to get a product that has some good traction. It's tight, it's well defined, its use cases are there, so we can basically demonstrate that. Because what I've taught when I've talked to people that are using big data, they say, yeah, it captures a lot of data, but holy shit, try and mine it. It's useless, is what a lot of frontline managers said. Yeah, we have it, but I don't use it because I can't understand. So it seems to me like there's a huge usability gap with the big enterprise stuff. So that's kind of good. So if I drew it on the NBA graph, I'd be having them down here as big, ugly, expensive, hard to use, and we'd be out here as kind of the we're simple, we're intuitive, we're lightweight, whatever. But those are sort of the things I'm kind of framing in as a sales language, I guess, if we're going to differentiate between big data. But then looking at the cloud-based stuff that a lot, and I don't know what you guys will be probably using some sort of Salesforce solution, but maybe not. But any of the cloud-based stuff, they tend to be lightweight, but they are very focused on just tracking. So it's not giving them a solution. They have data, but what do you do with the data? So how can you present that data back so that you can have a meaningful conversation to get people back to work or at work?
Yeah.
So I haven't seen any of the other pitches. Sorry, I wasn't.
Oh, that's fine.
That week, because I think I was in Halifax when you started this, but I don't actually understand what it does.
Okay, that's good.
I understand why you want to track it, but there's this.
All right, so this is just jumping back to last week.
Okay.
These are kind of things I looked at, and I ended up going with what Colin found was Edge Reflow, and it was good. It was buggy, but it worked. So this was my initial wireframe. So as the employee, if you logged in, Mr. Brian Best, you would kind of see what you had used for your vacation, what you've taken as personal days, and this has totally changed since I've looked at this. And we're really, I'm going back to those initial users that I reached out to really define and get this a lot tighter, what they want to see. But I think understanding what it is that they need to manage it's number one before I even start building product. So this was kind of our first stab. And the whole notion of uptime is that if I'm paying you to be at work, 100% uptime would be, you're here all the time. You meet your attendance because you're not using any days that really aren't allocated to you. And then as you start to use, sick time or these other ones, it would drop your uptime, if you will. I was trying to introduce a new noun into the whole game.
Darren,
Shona.
say one of the things that I've felt since you started this was that somehow people aren't entitled to use their sick days or their vacation days has come off like every time because the risk of something like this is that if you've got a really hostile to sick days environment, people come to work sick.
We don't want
and
that.
They give
Absolutely.
it to all of their coworkers.
Yeah, and that's I definitely don't want that to come off because if you're sick, we want you home.
And at the same time, like we discussed this last week as well, and you just reiterated it with your 2 pieces of advice there. I do agree. I still can't really see the employee side of using this, just for reasons like that, right? Like you don't want to discourage people to take a sick day off or something like that. And peer review might even encourage that. That a little
And so, we're still, I guess, finding what this is going to look like. So it's a lot of customer exploration right now, and this is the initial first guess. But the feedback that I'm getting back is solid because I definitely don't want it to look like we want you here at work sick.
So on the management side, does it equate to dollars saved? What's the end goal?
No.
What is it that
they're going to see trends. So, and I didn't build out that screen yet, but what they would see, and this is what I've coded so far. So you can see they don't look alike at all. So that's what I'm working on. So that's one of my sads that I spent so much time pitching this week. So you're talking about wearing many hats. I feel like my hat that was on all week was sales and customer feedback, or this type of environment, and this stuff lacked this week. But so from a management standpoint, what they would see, let's say you're managing a team of 15, you would ideally have these lovely pictures of all your team, and then based on the information that's getting aggregated in the back end, let's say Brian's green means he doesn't look like a threat that he's abusing kind of his bank of time, whereas you may have people that are chronically, they take Mondays and Fridays off. They're leaving and they have unexcused absences. They may appear as an orange or a red, because when I talked to the frontline management staff, what they said is they spend 70 to 80% of their time working with 1 or 2 employees, so they don't even get to focus any time with the rest of the team and helping them grow and align with the company's values or what have you, because they're just firefighting with these few employees. That's really dragging down their team performance.
I think your biggest edge on this, and this is what I describe it as, if a few of my friends say, what are other people in the class building? And I say, this Daredevil Darren. I'll call you. So I say,
I don't know why I call him.
Anyway, this Darren guy's doing this HR management thing, and they say, what is it? I'm like, and I know that they're not going to fully understand the HR, and I'm young myself, I don't fully grasp the HR, I get it, but I mean, what I tell them though, and that I find is really different, is that say you're underperforming at work, it takes away that awkwardness that the manager needs to contact you when you get notified. So there's people telling you that, and I don't know if you're still doing that or not, but if people are saying make it just management, I think that's the big driver for why an employee would sign up on it, and the employee side of it.
For them to see their own
just to get those notifications if they're underperforming.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and that's what we're exploring with the research, is what's the peer. I don't want to call it peer pressure, but what's that influence of you understanding where you fit amongst your peers, and will that change your behavior? Will that drive behavioral change, or will it make you self-select and leave the organization? Which in government is a huge thing, because most of those, and I'm not going to say most of those people, a lot of those people that I've worked with in that setting should probably look for another means of employment.
have you thought about?
Hold on. Matt's had his hand up for a while.
Yeah, no worries. We talked about having like two sort of metrics that you could track, and I'm like just really hammering in on that. Like, if you had like the size of the circle was the amount of influence a person had,
Right.
and then
You did,
like the color was how much they showed up. So if it was green, they're there all the time. If it's a big circle, they have a lot of influence. So big green circles are good, and small red circles don't really matter. Big red circles are really, really bad. Something that like at a glance they can tell this employee is not showing up to work, but we don't really care.
Right. Yeah, Matt had a really good point too, was a what if scenario. So if we took that person out of the equation, how did that impact the team performance? And I really like that that feature set that we talked about last week or earlier this
You
week.
have to
How would you
understand
measure-
the org chart though, right?
Yeah.
How would you measure team performance?
Oh, it was more based on their
Like,
attendance.
Would one person's attendance affect the attendance of the rest of the group?
Right. Do you have to pick up your coworkers' work if they're not there?
Yeah, so
As a
does
result.
the manager have to like put in that the team, or does the team members like, are they in?
Ideally, it's either going to pull from their calendar or they're going to, click and say, yeah, I was at work today. And then it will, if you're a salaried employee, it takes whatever your time that's there. We're still working on what those metrics are and what that's going to look like. But I really have to understand from the end users, saying, like when these managers say it's a problem, okay, how are you managing it now? And a lot of them say, I look at calendars, I circle the days that they're not there, and I go have a conversation with them, or I go to my Excel spreadsheet and I run some graphs, or it's very archaic method. Or they have the big data solution, they don't understand how to pull that information out and how to use it.
That's like
Yeah.
two quick, sort of recaps of what I was thinking. Like, when it comes to the influence thing, I was talking about like just checking influence attendance against other people's attendance. So like, does this person's attendance affect the attendance of the group?
Right.
Not worrying about tracking more metrics than you have in your scope. You don't want to like get into like tracking another productivity metric. And also, I think if it's like something the employees are going to use, I would only want to use it if I had access to the same data that the
For
employer
everyone.
used.
Yeah.
I want to have the same view because I would feel really comfortable knowing what the employer was looking at. I would want to see like, this is how they see me. And if I could, again, also have access to how I affect the company as a whole or my team, that'd be really cool too.
Yeah, I don't think the solution is going to be easy, because if it was, someone probably would have implemented it by now. So I think doing a lot more, trying to understand the customer and how they're going to use this is going to be key, because it may be something that we pursue or maybe something we abandon based on that. But I think it's worth a look, and I'm kind of excited to explore it because if nothing else, I'm getting to practice pitching quite a bit, but I'm also starting now to look at it from how it may be used, and I think that's a lot different, because when you're designing for the end user, it's going to get challenging as you start to work through what those views look like, what information do they need, eliminating stuff. So when Matt has that stuff at the top of the screen, we're talking about getting rid of it. We don't know how the users are going to use that, so I think understanding that's really, really important. And just this is kind of where I've been with the design. So it is responsive. Yay. You can click places. It doesn't go anywhere yet. But at least it's the first attempt at Bootstrap and playing around with. I was going to actually put in custom images there, but I didn't get time to do it. But.
Have you thought about, just to inject some positivity into this, these sorts of things freak me out, because it's so, like, it's the traditional
brother.
paradigm of work and corporate culture, and we aren't a part of that, but that still exists, and it's still really critical, and there's still managers that are responsible for those metrics and reporting and acting, so it's important. But there's also like the trend in giving employees time off to do good things.
Absolutely.
And so maybe there's a way to, like, I don't know, it just seems like there's a kind of a negative spin to this whole system, and you might be able to put some more positive attributes and say that even though this is the downtime from a personal perspective, there's also this amount of time that we're giving you to use, and how is that benefiting the company in other ways?
Yeah, one of the ideas we had early on was, say your base salary is set at this amount, like I don't know, at 85% of your wage, and then that other 15% is dictated by whether it's productivity time or how you positively contribute to the organization. There's that bonus that you can basically earn as a
Right.
result. But then that's going to be different for every organization, and that's going to be a
And 2
challenge in
weeks off
itself.
a year, and your culture is to highlight the fact that if you're gone, that you have X influence that's negative to your team.
Right.
How then do you counteract that with, we're giving you 2 weeks off to go do something great, and then say, oh, that isn't a negative influence on your team.
Right.
It's just about absenteeism, whether or
Yeah.
not you're present.
Yep.
So that would be kind of cool to maybe
No.
explore.
I
That's
agree.
excellent.
There's something about like absenteeism and
That's a horrible
the
word.
definition of that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, the definition is like my vacation time.
Yeah.
And I was
That's a
sick.
positive thing.
And like,
Yeah.
Balance.
Yeah, and if you look at a lot of the literature, it talks more about presenteeism, right?
Mhm.
So and the positive effects that has on work. And that's this is when you talk absenteeism, you're really talking 20 years ago,
Yeah.
because most of the HR lingo now is around presenteeism.
and so when you have that that tagline, which is like from presence to performance. Right?
Yep. Do you want to explain?
And I've been thinking about that quite a bit too, because it's like when you're present, then performance can happen at an org level. Like if an individual is present, then
Yeah.
like the org can be performant. But I think there's like something about that like aligns with what Heather was saying about like the quality of somebody being present. Like, are they present and engaged,
Right.
or are they like
Just a
present
bum in a
and
seat.
sick?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or are they
Oh,
present
right.
and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and like overworked? And like so
Yeah.
I think there is something really important there, and I think like a more important metric might not be that they had so many absentee days based on vacation and sick days, but it's like, are there any like days that they were absent that like weren't tracked, that they didn't report? Like were
Right.
they like maybe there's something in there that's like a little more interesting for companies, where you can talk about absenteeism that like hasn't been part of the allotted.
Not just.
Like,
Yeah, actually, it's
Justified.
the unearned. It's unearned absenteeism is really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not so much that stuff was just shown as when I had that data bar up top, it was really showing what you've used, not so much what you have left or what you've earned. And that's when we talk as absenteeism, we're actually talking about days that you're not really entitled to. So they're unauthorized or unapproved absences from the workplace.
Yeah.
You'll have to work to make that distinction as well,
Yeah.
because you don't want to turn this into a negative thing at the
Yeah.
same time, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
especially someone who's come from an environment where taking a day off sick was frowned upon, and they're in this new environment, but that line of thought is always kind of in the back of their head, like, oh
Mhm.
shit, like I'm not feeling well this morning. Am I going to get in
Judged.
trouble? for
Right.
Am I
taking
gonna be
a day off?
judged?
Am I going to get judged?
And here's the challenge I have with this whole product. I am not someone that values hourly work. I'm like, here's a scope of work. If it takes you 2 hours to do it, great. If it takes 20 hours, it's on the outcome is how I like to measure things. So it's really hard for me to wrap my head around this as a product
Yeah.
when that's my mindset, because I know most of the companies I'm going to probably take this into are hourly paid workers or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one for me, because I'm more outcome based than you're at work today, great, here's your 8 hours.
There are jobs that are timeline dependent. Right?
Yeah.
You're just thinking more along the lines of like an IT
The quality
Yeah.
of
job
contribution.
where the end product is more important than the hours spent on
Yeah.
the end product.
Because if you're an efficient worker, you can get that done and be gone doing real cool things. And
Or if you're meaning
How's
to
that
spend
gonna
all day
impact?
working out.
Well, you
Or
get
get
more
more
work done.
done.
You're more
Yeah,
productive,
exactly.
So you have more time.
yeah,
How will you factor in, once you've sort of set this up, how will you factor potentially remote workers who?
yeah, and absolutely, the workplace shouldn't be the thing that dictates this.
Okay, so it's
Right.
not about whether.
It's
or
not the
you-
physical
whether
location
you're
that
currently
we
in
tracked you
there
with your RFID because you come into
Uh-huh.
work, or something today, or you swiped or you clocked
Right.
in. I don't want to get into that. I really don't want to be a tracking tool.
Uh-huh.
It's more of coaching to higher levels of performance, and that's maybe I'm selling it wrong when I'm doing the presentation.
Did you have
'Cause I'm not
capacity
talking-
for in lieu days in there as well? I can't remember if I saw it.
I don't know. Those things are just things we grabbed as
Yeah.
filled dashboard to see. This is things that typically
So
get
it's
tracked.
Not.
No, so if you did, let's say you worked the 14 hours and you
Yeah.
have bank, we want to be able to represent that too.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's actually Yeah, I'm thinking about jobs that I had that I worked.
Most of the jobs I had, I
all the
worked
time,
in
and I
Lou.
tracked it on pieces of paper, tracked it on like a note in my thing, and then I
Yeah.
presented
Yeah.
to my employer.
Lou days are
Like,
always a thing they forget
month
about.
down the road,
Absolutely.
It's like, hey,
Yeah.
so I,
Do you want to pay these out?
yeah, so I was like 2 hours on the Monday, 3 hours on the Friday, like all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it got exhausting. And actually, by the point in time where I like could bring it to her where there was a significant amount of it, you say, well, you've got to justify all these hours and where they came from.
Right.
And then it was a kind of a shock to her when she saw this number.
Yeah.
And basically kind of like, so well, I mean, that can't be right. Well, it is.
Yeah.
It is right. And if you were able to see it tracked every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Going
excellent.
back and finding out what you did on all of those days, though, is usually damn near impossible.
Well,
That would be the
I
offset
kept
though
details.
too, right? If
Yeah.
someone comes to you and says, you've missed, Heather, you're at 87%, you've missed 3 days. Well, yeah, but I've done, in the last 365 days, I've done 8 extra weeks of work
Yeah.
in overtime.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
yeah, no,
on my
that would
annual
definitely have to be
evaluation, it would
reflected
nice
into
to
those
be able
numbers,
to
yeah.
show the offsets as well.
Yeah.
But cool.
More.
You said you wanted it real.
I want more. That's
one of the
back
things to say,
here,
and this was in
Darren.
your previous
You
slide,
asked
I
for
know
it.
you've changed your design now.
yeah.
The red and the green, that shows a definite like positive negative,
Mhm.
where it's a gray space, I think. I maybe wouldn't go with it, but that's
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
opinion. I just, I saw like a percentage, and at like 84, 89, you had a red, and I know that you were just doing design things,
Yeah.
it's not your final stuff.
No.
But when I see that number, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Basically, it has to be an alert to the manager. So I don't know, or to whoever's looking at the data, right? So if you're trending kind of out of the norm, we want to be able to flag that. So I don't know what that looks like yet,
Yeah.
but I'm willing to explore it.
The original problem statement where you have like absenteeism contributes
Yeah.
X billion to, or takes away X billion from the Canadian economy.
And we are
whatever that number is, like
yeah.
that's so compelling when you talk about that, and I find that part of it really inspiring, and I think you've gotten yourself to a point now where you've just been on the road for a week and you've been talking to so many people and getting so much advice that you're a little bit confused about your like solution.
Absolutely.
So just like
Take
find
some time
solace
back.
in like your problem statement
Mhm.
and go back to that problem statement and take everything you've like learned and all the feedback you've been given and think about how it contributes as a like viable solution to that problem, because it's a huge problem and it's a
Right.
very interesting problem and it's a difficult problem, and the hard part right now and why you're spending all this time talking to people is like to hone a solution that can
Exactly.
solve that problem
Yeah.
in a way that resonates with companies and with employees.
Yeah, having that
Awesome.
number at the front is always great to
Yep.
pull someone in like, holy shit, like
What
that
is the
much.
number?
Well, Carol, look at me. She goes, "Are you crazy? 16.6 billion."
16.6
Yeah.
billion.
Who's not-
And we're going to
who's not
capture all of it.
No, that's just how it impacts
No, I know
productivity.
About-
And we're one of the worst countries in the world with respect to productivity.
So maybe what you're hearing is that the solution needs to be something that kind of feels positive.
Mhm.
Like it's like we have this horrible problem, and here's like this solution that like takes some
Lifts
weight
us
off
up,
of our
right.
shoulders. And,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Great.
And I probably don't
It was
have to
the
tell
fact
you
that
this,
they're
but
not- there's so many
about half of the
not
people are going to ask you
tracking
where you got your
it.
numbers.
Conference Board of Canada
So
2012.
yeah, I was gonna say just,
No
just
problem. I
make
have
sure
all-
you have that on hand every time.
Everything I've talked to, I have the reference data for. So,
Yeah.
and with
Yeah.
respect, here's a question I have to you and to anyone else that has feedback on.
So going off the stage.
Total. Listen, a lot of you guys hog more time than me. This total available market number that gets used, is that the number that you're going to try and capture, or is that total available market that if you had 100%?
it should be the size of the market, and then it should be like here are all the competitors, and then it should be like this is where we're gonna like get in there,
And nibble
and
in.
then it's gonna be like this is how we're gonna start taking market share,
Okay.
right? So you kind of come in with this like unique offering, but you might have ambitions to take over SAP or Workday or one of these companies.
Yeah. Okay. No, because I got questioned on that by one of the judges, and was like, "Whoa! I thought it was the total available market potential." Everything. Because in Canada, it's about if we use our price point at $3 per person, it's like 640 million. But if you jump to the US, UK, it goes like 7.1 billion. Which I know you said we want to be going after that B size market, right?
It's all about just knowing that there's a big enough
Problem.
market
Right.
to create a big company.
Okay.
And I think everything else just has to be your strategy, right? Like, how are you going to
Execute.
become a significant company
Right.
in that marketplace?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Good job, Darren.
This
What's that?
This